House Transportation Committee for April the 7th, 2021, now in session. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Boyd, Campbell, Grills, Halford, Hicks, Hurt, Kiesling, Marsh, McKenzie, Potts, Powers, Russell, Thompson, Todd, Towns, Weaver, Whitson, Vice Chairman Hall.
Here.
Chairman Howell.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam. Any personal orders from the committee? Seeing none, members, we have a short calendar today, but we do have a couple of guests who will be offering testimony on a couple of bills. And after we get through with our calendar, we do have the annual report as required by statute from the newly created Office of Accessible Transportation. We'll be having a presentation after we get through our calendar. So without objection, we'll move forward on our calendar. House Bill 532, item number 1 on our calendar. Representative Gant, you are recognized. We have a motion and second on your bill. Do you have an amendment? I don't see one.
No, sir.
Okay. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. I'll be brief. I know I went long in the subcommittee, and I'll try to summarize here, but I want to be on record as best I can as we've talked about this, Chairman. Generally, under present law, the primary responsibility for enforcing traffic laws within the limits of a municipality is on the municipality. However, under present law, a municipality having a population of 10,000 or less and with at least 2 entrance ramps, 2 and at least 2 exit ramps from an interstate highway is not authorized to enforce traffic laws within the contiguous stretch of interstate highway between such entrance and exit ramps does not lie solely within the territorial limits of the municipality. This bill revises the provision to remove the requirement that the referenced area be solely within the territorial limits of the municipality in order for the municipality to be authorized to enforce the traffic laws of this state as described above. And Mr. Chairman and Committee, there is a 4.2 mile stretch on I-269 that I'm alluding to that will allow the city of Piperton to patrol that area. And as we have discussed, and I'm sure that Chairman Whitson will also make a point as well on this, as well as I know you have, Mr. Chairman, in the past. So I will yield to my good friend, Chairman Whitson, at your discretion.
Okay. We do have some members who have questions. First on the list is Representative Todd. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I want to just get some clarification on this. So this is going to allow the small community of Piperton, their law enforcement, to enforce state law on the interstate. Is that correct?
You're recognized.
That is correct.
Representative Todd?
The concern I have there is maybe an overreach potentially from a local community getting ticket happy and generating some revenues that they otherwise wouldn't. We see that across the state in small towns that get the ability without an interstate, but just with a highway. They have put up cameras. They've done a lot of things over the years that strictly are generating revenue. And this General Assembly and past General Assemblies have frowned upon that. We have put stipulation in place to prevent things like that. So I'm just concerned about that. So can you address those concerns? I'm not really even sure what to ask you in this, but I'd like for you to address some of those if you could.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Todd, for that question. And I will, as we talked in sub, this is a good conversation to have on record. And I've talked to several of the members of this committee and expressed those same concerns as you just described. And with us being on record here and in conversation with my Senate sponsor as well, this can be brought back to the body here and we can address it if that concern becomes a reality. And that is very much a concern of mine as well. The Tennessee Highway Patrol obviously does a great job for our state. And this particular area is known for drug trafficking. It's a thoroughfare that a lot of traffic comes through that area. And by giving the city of Piperton a chance to prove that the safety of the citizens of Piperton are the number one priority here, I'm willing to go out on a limb and give them a chance to do that. And that's what I'm asking this committee to follow me to the high ground here with our law enforcement and give them the ability to do that. And if this becomes a concern as a speed trap, as you have alluded to, that is obviously a great concern to our constituents and to this body as well. So I hope that kind of answers your question there, Chairman Todd.
Representative Todd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it does, and I appreciate those comments. Does this only apply to the city of Piperton with the limits that are put in here?
You're recognized.
That is correct.
All right, next on the list, Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Leader Gann. Now, where I'm from, I know Piperton. It's pretty famous in our area for being a speed trap. I'm just wondering one thing. Do you know what the percentage of the total revenue of Piperton is? What percentage comes from traffic tickets?
You're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to abuse the rules, so I'm
okay.
I'm trying to be good here. So, Representative Thompson, I do not know the answer to that. It obviously gets into another sector of inside the city of Piperton with their finances, and that's not why this legislation is being brought, and I do not have the answer to that.
Representative Thompson. It may in one sense not be related, but in another sense it really is. I mean, this gives Piperton more room to be even a bigger speed trap than it is now. And I think that's one thing we ought to look at. It's one thing to enforce speeders and reckless drivers and everything, but when you purposely put your patrol vehicles in ways to catch people going a very minimal amount of miles above the speed limit, it goes to another level. And I'd be hard pressed to vote for this bill. And I think that one thing we ought to do is maybe look and see what get into those figures, find out what how they're prospering now through a multitude of speeding tickets, and what their projection is for increasing that with this bill.
I have no comment, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Leader Gant, for bringing this. And actually, Chairman Todd stole my question, and appreciate that. But I'm also sure that the Chamber of Commerce of Piperton appreciates all these questions that we brought up in here today. But listen, Leader Gann has expressed this concern from the very beginning, and he is, and I trust him to keep an eye on this. And if it does become an issue, he will bring it back, and that's why I support this legislation today. And so again, we discussed this at length in sub and conversations between me and the leader. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Leader Gann.
Thank you, Chairman Whitson. I appreciate your support in this, and I just want to be on record. From 2014 through 2017, the Piperton Police Department responded to 41 motor vehicle crashes on the stretch of Highway 385 running through through this jurisdiction. This was what it was formerly called, was State Highway 385. And in addition to the 41, the Tennessee Highway Patrol responded to and worked 2 crashes within the city of Piperton jurisdiction that we're talking about today, one of which was a fatality. And our number one responsibility is to protect our citizens. And if this goes beyond the protection of our citizens in the normal realm, then I assure my citizens in Piperton, as I represent them, and if this becomes an abuse, it will be brought back to this body. And you have my word on that.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that information. I think I heard you say earlier on the first round of questioning that this wasn't necessarily about speeding, but more so, the potential for drug trafficking. So I guess my question, is this bill to enforce or take down speeding in this stretch, or is it about something else?
Representative Gant.
This would allow the city of Piperton Police Department to patrol this area. The adjacent city to the west is the city of Collierville, which my colleague, Representative Kevin Vaughn, represents. The city of Collierville already patrols the contiguous portion that connects to this 4.2 miles that I'm talking about that's in my district. So this helps those 2 law enforcements work together and become one continuity of a section that patrols this entire area of the interstate that comes through there. And as it goes back toward Memphis, it does turn back into 385, and I-269 goes south into Mississippi. This is a new and developing area. And obviously the citizens were concerned about this, that I did receive emails from the citizens there in Piperton asking for us to vote in favor of this. So this is not something that's coming from the blind side of looking at this from that perspective. This is a bedroom community, and I think it's upon us here to give the city of Piperton to prove that safety is the number one concern here. And again, I ask you to follow me to the high ground and join our law enforcement and put the trust in them to do the right thing here. Now, obviously, if you're out there on this interstate and you're speeding in an excessive form, then you are putting other motorists in jeopardy with that excessive speed. So, Mr. Chairman, I think there's room to have an argument here, but at the same time, it's our law enforcement's responsibility to protect the citizens and the motorists around them as they travel through this area. But as I've said, if this becomes deemed a speed trap, and it comes to my attention in several complaints, and we all know that's a great possibility. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I hope I've done your committee justice in explaining what we're trying to attempt here. So
Yes. I might add, I believe Department of Safety is deferred on this. And you've
Yes.
had conversations with
That
him
is
about
correct.
this. Okay. Next on the list, Chairman Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, sponsor. I have a quick question because I was looking at the description here about 10,000 left. It actually, the city that I live in, or the town that I live in, this describes it exactly. Would it not apply to that too? I live in the city of Caryville. We have 2 interchanges. We have less than 10,000 people, and they're all within the municipality. Would it not apply to it too, you think?
well, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
You recognize.
If you read into the definition, and legal has assured me here that this only pertains to Piperton with the language as it says, as with at least 2 entrance ramps, 2 and at least 2 exit ramps from an interstate highway, is not authorized to enforce traffic laws with the contiguous stretch of interstate highway between such entrance and exit ramps does not lie solely within the territorial limits of the municipality. So as this has been explained to me, this narrows it down to only Piperton, and I will defer to legal if that's something that's interpreted differently.
I mean, I support your bill, and I hope it does apply to where I live, because we have a high number of, I-75 goes through there, have a high number of accidents through there, and a lot of drug trafficking, like you were talking about a while ago on I-75 on that stretch. So I hope it would apply, and I support your bill. I just wondered, but it looks like it described my town too, along with yours. But we'll check with legal and find out. I guess. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did you have a request for legal to look at something?
I'll leave that up to Chairman Powers if he wants to defer to them.
Well, I mean, could we do it now, or
Sure.
is it,
Go out of
thank you.
session and address your question to legal.
Joel Hayes, Office of Legal Services. Chairman Powers, currently, there are, generally under law, municipalities are authorized to enforce the rules of the road. Under statute, there are limitations placed on municipalities with a population of 10,000 or less. But what we're addressing here with Leader Gant's legislation is the fact that there is a carve out with that prohibition on 10,000 or less, where if the municipality is 10,000 or less, there are at least 2 entrance ramps and 2 exit ramps on the interstate highway, and that stretch of highway is solely within the municipality, then that municipality can patrol that stretch of highway. The issue with the city of Piperton is that the interstates, northbound lanes are actually within this city of Piperton. Southbound lanes of that interstate are in, I believe, Collierville, or not within the city limits. And so that's what, by removing the language solely, this would expand Piperton's authority to patrol this section of road.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answered my question. Yes.
All right. Any other questions for legal? We'll go back into
Thank you.
session.
Thank you, Mr.
and
Chairman. Thank you, sponsor.
That's all I have on the list. If the committee seeks further clarity, we do have someone from the Department of Safety here that's on the list to testify if you need further clarity. Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sponsor, for this legislation. I'll be supporting it because of the traffic fatality numbers. I think it's going to make our state safer. Did have one quick question about the interstate being a federal road. Did you check into any federal rules about the state versus local municipalities enforcing traffic laws?
You're recognized.
That's actually what brought this legislation, is to deal with that federal issue that was at hand, because we're going from a state highway, which was 385, to now it's an interstate I-269. So in order for the city of Piperton to do this, we have to pass this legislation in order for that to concur with the federal conflict.
You're recognized, Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it just looks like a great piece of legislation. I'm honored to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other, Representative Marsh, Speaker Marsh.
Thank you,
sorry.
Mr. Chairman. My question is, if it's in Piperville on the northbound and Collierville on the southbound, if the Piperton patrol or city policeman gives a ticket on the southbound side, do they go to Piperton to court, or they go to Collierville to court?
Lead again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Speaker Pro Temp. Believe me, these police officers know when they pull you over what jurisdiction they're in. So I don't know how to really answer that question, other than the police officer should know where he's currently at when he's given that ticket. So.
Any other questions? For clarification, Leader Gant, I understand certain aspects of this do require THP approval. Am I correct about it? Could you expand on that?
Yes, that is correct. We had met with them 2 years ago on this legislation, and they are deferred, on this at this point. So.
Okay, so you've been working on this quite a while. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, we're ready to vote on House Bill 532. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. No. Ayes have it. The bill goes to calendar and rule, sir.
Thank you, Chairman and committee.
Moving on to item number 2, House Bill 236. Chair Lady Littleton, I believe she stepped out. We're going to roll her 2 spaces. How about that? And we're moving on to item number 3, House Bill 1392. Representative Freeman is here. I see him in the building, and he's up next. You're in the batter box, sir. We have a motion and a second. You are recognized, sir.
Thank you, sir. The last time I was before the subcommittee, I made an agreement that if all the parties involved would agree to get together, that I would roll this and allow that to happen. And I'm going to make good on that promise. But I would like to note that this is a legitimate and serious problem in our city. And I'm sure many of you saw the photo that was circulating. Some of you sent that to me. There has to be a way for this to stop. And it's not going to stop here. It's coming to your community very soon. And so with that, I would like to roll this till the first calendar of next year. And hopefully everyone can get together and have some real and legitimate discussions that can hopefully solve this.
Thank you, Representative. And you and I have had many discussions about this, along with some other folks, and it is a concern. I think we're all concerned. People on the committee are concerned, and people in the community are concerned. And we've been working on this for 2 years now, and there's got to be a solution out there somewhere. So thank you for agreeing to roll it until next year. I will tell the committee that we have an agreement from the speaker that we will have a hearing sometime in September on this very issue for the purpose of trying to bring all of these parties together, because that seems to be something we've not been able to do. But we'll give it a shot, and hopefully we can get this resolved. So without objection, the bill is rolled to the first calendar of next year.
Thank you for all
very
your
much.
hard work on this, Chairman.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to look at item number 4 now. 1544, Chair Lady Weaver, you are recognized. We have a motion and a second. You're recognized, Representative Weaver, and I believe you have an amendment. Is that correct? Have a motion, second
that's
on the
okay.
amendment?
That amendment is 50, I gotta use my glasses, 5749.
That's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members. I have to admit, this is the first, well, I'll say this
Chair
first.
Lady, could I interrupt just a moment? Committee, let's put the amendment on the
Yeah,
bill, then we can
that's a
talk
good
about the
idea.
bill. All in favor of adding the amendment to the bill, say aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. The amendment is on the bill. Now, if you'd explain the bill as amended.
Okay, I'd be delighted to. Of course, this amendment deletes all the language after enacting the clause. It authorizes private non-commercial vehicle owners and lessees to renew their registration plates for a 24-month period rather than the current 12-month period, with a fee to offset the revenue otherwise generated by that of a 12-month registration beginning January 1 of 2022. It also authorizes the Department of Revenue to establish a system of registration renewals at alternate intervals that allows for a uniform distribution of the registration workload. It earmarks beginning fiscal year 22-23 a sum from the county general funds to hold harmless the loss of fee revenue to county clerks resulting from the increase in the duration of the registration period if requested by the county. So this bill, first and foremost, is optional, so it's permissible. It is very convenient for the citizen. I don't know about you, but there have been a couple times where I forgot to go get my little license tab, and I'm driving around and a wonderful trooper will pull me over and say, Representative Weaver, you better go get your tag. It has expired. I don't do it intentionally, but sometimes that happens. This would give you some grace time. You at least have another year. And also, it is helpful to constituents, saves you a trip. So it's all convenient and wonderful for the citizens. However, and by the way, not to mention, it has a positive fiscal note. Now, how many of you really welcome a positive fiscal note on your legislation? Everybody should probably say aye. So that's what the bill does. It's to help citizens, but we do have someone here and he happens to be my wonderful clerk in Sumner County. And if we could go out of session and have him come present some information and give you opportunity to ask him questions.
Without objection, we're out of session, and we will ask Mr. Bill Kemp to come forward and offer us your sound advice on this particular bill. Oh, I believe Lisa Crowell, is that the name? I believe you're invited forward too, if you'd like to come. And you can also, if you're comfortable, you can remove your mask so that the people at home can see who they're looking at. And I was instructed by the leader, by the way, Mr. Kemp, to be very kind to you because you are also his clerk. And so hit the red button. Should be on. Just pull it a little closer if you wouldn't mind. But he didn't tell me
to
that,
the
see?
40th district where I am represented by Chairman Weaver.
He didn't
So
tell me.
this in no way has anything to do with the sponsor of the bill. I am a fan of Chairman Weaver. I am a supporter of Chairman Weaver. So this has nothing to do with her. This has to do representing county clerks.
Sure.
There were several questions at the subcommittee level with county clerks. Bill Kemp, Sumner County Clerk. I'm one of the newer county clerks. I'm just finishing my 31st year. So I'm been doing it for a little while. And so I'm here to try to help represent my county clerks and answer a few questions that we had at subcommittee. First, we county clerks are very serious about convenience to the customers. 94 county clerks offer online renewals. So in 94 counties, you can renew online. In 27 counties, we have self-service kiosks. So you can walk up to a kiosk and renew. Some counties have multiple locations. Some of those are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can walk up and renew there. We have an app. If you want to renew on your telephone, you can download an app and you can renew on your telephone. So we are offering convenience to the customer to renew your plates every way we can. There was a statement about 24-month renewal already in place that was brought up at subcommittee. We do have 24-month renewal currently. It applies to one company in the state of Tennessee. You have to be a rental car company and you have to have 15,000 registrations to be eligible to qualify for the 24-month registration currently. That company submits those registrations to different counties and they're operated in batches. So they come in some 60, some 100. So they will stop and create a whole batch just for those 24-month registrations and do them. So it's not like we're having one customer walk up to choose to say, I want to do this for 24 months. So that was one thing that was brought up. There was a question about, will this apply to firefighter plates? Fire chiefs have to give us a list of what firefighters get the plate. So if somebody's on the volunteer fire department list this year, but not on it next year, they don't qualify for the firefighter plate. But in addition to firefighters, we have other plates that have requirements annual. Emergency plates, FOP plates, National Guard plates, NAR plates, Duck Unlimited, Tennessee State Guard, sororities, fraternities, amateur radio plates. All of those are examples of plates that require annual documentation before we can renew. Will those plates be eligible for the 2-year renewal? At this point, we don't know because we don't know what the rules are going to be. Are we going to have to tell those people, no, you cannot renew for 2 years, but the person next in line, yes, you can. So that's a question that we have. There was a question about whether or not this was permissive. We asked CTAS to review the bill for us. And yes, we do believe it's permissive for the individual, but as we read it, it is not permissive for the county or the county clerk. So that's one question we have, and the permissiveness, whether the bill is permissive or not. It's not permissive for the local government. So what we as county clerks, as being the administrators of the bill, it appears to us that we're saying we're going to put this 2-year registration in the law, and we're going to answer the questions after the fact. We would prefer to answer the questions and then make the decision whether or not we're going to put the 2-year registration in the law. So that's where we are.
Any questions for Mr. Kent? Chairman Whitson.
Yes, thank you, sir, and we appreciate you coming and giving that information to us. My concern is we're still dealing with this emissions testing in several of our counties across the state, and until that's answered too, this could cause confusion. And I like your comment that, until we find out that we work this, and I think this is a great idea. I love the idea of a 24-month. In fact, I carried the legislation for the 24 months for the rental cars, so I'm very familiar with it. So, but again, I think we still have a lot of questions we need to work through before we go down this road and make sure we do it right. And I would love to see this next session.
We do have one county that may not even stop when emissions testing is over with. It may continue the emissions test. Yes, sir.
Chairman Halford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And a couple of things that my clerks have called up to me are, number one, insurance is usually for a duration of 1 year. So how do we handle that problem?
Currently, insurance with the Insure Tennessee, if your insurance goes without, even after the first month, if you renew and 1 month later your insurance, you don't pay that monthly insurance, you get a letter from Insure Tennessee telling you if you don't have insurance on file within 30 days, you're going to get a fine, $25 fine. And then if you don't answer that letter, you get another letter telling you if you don't answer this letter, you're going to get a $100 fine on top of that. So then you get to $125. Then when you come to renew your license plate, you have $125 that's required to be paid. Not only that, you're required to have proof of insurance and pay the $125. So the insurance is a big question. If people could run 2 years instead of the 1 year before we, the county clerks, are the stopgap to make them pay before their car tags are renewed.
You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And the other thing that they brought up, several counties, mine included, have what's the word I'm looking for here? Wheel tax. So how do we approach the wheel tax?
And that was a question at subcommittee that I did not answer, is what if a wheel tax goes up during the 2-year cycle? Well, those people are not going to volunteer to come back in and pay their prorated share, I'm sure. But my concern is more adverse selection. What if the wheel tax is going up at the first of the month? How many people are going to come in and renew for 2 years before the first of the month? As many as possible. So we have that rush now where people want to come in to beat the wheel tax, but now they're going to want to come in and renew for 2 years to beat the wheel tax.
You recognized.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. I believe it's the case now that an insurance company, that an insurance company has to notify a lien holder if they fall out of compliance. So how does that work into all of this?
And I'm sorry, I'm hogging everything. No. We have electronic verification. So an insurance company to do business in Tennessee is required to notify a state database. And if that person doesn't pay, that database it's pulled from that database. So it's not just the time when you come to renew, it's any time that database, if you're stopped and it hits that database, it shows that car's without insurance at that moment. They may have a piece of paper that shows they're good for 6 months, but the database is going to show they're out of insurance. So that electronic verification is what's there. And then If they don't get pulled over in that year, by the time they get to us, that's when they have to pay the full, and actually it's 150 if they get to us and have to pay. They have to pay the $125 plus 25.
Chairman Halford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And last but not least, and I'll be quiet here. I caught that you said it appears to be permissible.
For at both the Senate side and what I heard from the subcommittee, it said it was permissible for the individual and for the county. Our attorney that looked at it from the County Technical Assistance Service does not say it's permissible for the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Kroll, would you like to add to the conversation?
Thank you, Bill. This button? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, I'm Lisa Kroll. I'm the county clerk for Rutherford County. Bill did a fabulous job in explaining this. Again, the County Clerks Association, the 24-month registration idea is a good one. However, there's just so many unanswered questions right now that Bill demonstrated, and more will come to light if this was to go forward without it being figured out on the front end. You know, the county clerks and our staff, we're the ones that have to deliver this message, collect the fees, and it's so important that we and the staff and even the public has a full understanding of what is about to happen, what their options are. Again, firefighters, rescue squad, how are they not allowed when the general public is allowed? One thing that wasn't brought up was 2290s. Those are heavy vehicle use tax. Those are audited annually. Where do they fall in that area? So many unanswered questions. Again, the insurance verification, the numbers have improved greatly since they implemented that law. And when it was presented to us as county clerks, we had a clear understanding of how we were going to deliver that message and how we were going to perform those duties when they were addressed at our office. In this bill right here, there's too many unanswered questions, too many uncertainties. Again, the 24-month registration is a good option, and I'm about giving everyone an option. And maybe in the future, when these questions are answered, it would be a great idea.
Okay, thank you. Members, we've got several more members on the list, but let me just pose a question. We've got some other things we have to do, plus a report. I'm going to address the sponsor and ask the sponsor, based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like people like your idea, but we don't like the fact that it's not fully vetted yet. Would you have an interest in rolling this to the first calendar of next year until we get it fully vetted before we go back into session? You're recognized.
You want me to comment now or when we go back into session?
We can go back into session. If you prefer, we can go back into session, or
Yeah.
you can comment now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, just so that I get my last word.
Oh,
in.
you'll get the last word, as you always do.
Thank you.
Oh, strike that from the record, okay?
You're a good man.
Committee, we can continue with the testimony, but I think that's the direction we're headed. Would that be agreeable to the committee? Okay. Thank you so much for coming and for the
Bill.
testimony. Very helpful.
Thanks. Thank
It
you.
really is very helpful.
Thanks,
We're back in
Lisa.
session.
Thanks.
Chair Lady Weaver, you are recognized.
No, I love this. I love the discussion. I love the fact that we have the experts here that we can ask these questions to, and we really got a lot done today, so I don't feel it was in vain. But I do want to work forward on it and see how we could possibly think going forward on this. And, it's a great idea for citizens, but as you know, we got to work it out before we can actually make it into law. So I am at the will of the committee, and we can do a study on it. We can, however you want to do it, Chairman. I'm with you.
We have one more question, Chairman, Representative Towns.
comment, you were saying moving it to the calendars of the following year, but if we do that, we don't get a chance to hash over it during the summer and
Well,
really vet it like you were suggesting, which I like to build too.
The intent is to work with the sponsor and with all the people involved to see if we can answer these questions.
So that means
And-
we'll meet during the summer or something.
Potentially.
Okay. All right.
Potentially.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're recognized.
Chairman, thank you. Committee members, thank you. I think it's a great idea that we can possibly, where there's a will, there's a way, and we'll work it out. Thank you so much.
Without objection, we will roll this bill to the first calendar of next year. Thank you very much. We're going to go back now to item number 2. Chairman Littleton is back, and we have a motion and a second. Chair Lady Littleton, and you are recognized on House Bill 236.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And it has an amendment on it where we're asking for the CARE money.
Yes, we do have.
4649.
I believe that is correct. Yes, we have a motion second on the amendment. Let's add the amendment to the bill. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Amendment is on the bill. And now explain the bill as amended, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This allows the county clerks or contracted entity to collect an additional $1 per license issued to the customer. This is permissive based on jurisdiction, and it authorizes contracting entities who are issuing the Real ID compliant license to receive $3 per license from the Department of Safety for services rendered. The county clerks are issuing approximately 100,000 Real IDs this fiscal year, which has alleviated traffic from the overcrowded state of the DMV offices. And as written, it will sunset at conclusion of 1 fiscal year.
Any questions for the sponsor? Question has been called. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Your bill moves to finance. Chair Lady.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you. All right, skipping forward, I believe it's my turn. We're going to hand the gavel to Vice Chairman Hall. And Chairman Hall, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're moving on to item number 5, House Bill 123 by Chairman Howell. Properly motioned and second. Chairman Howell, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do have the amendment for this omnibus bill. It's 5520.
Motion on the motion and properly motioned and second on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Amendment goes with the bill.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, this is the omnibus bill for specially licensed plates, and as always, I'd be glad to read each one of them, but there's about 50.
Question on the bill? There's been question on the bill. We're now voting on House Bill 123 by Chairman Howell. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Moves on to finance. Now moving on to item number 6, House Bill 124 by Chairman Howell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Properly motioned and second by Chairman Howell. You are recognized.
I do have an amendment 6408. Wait, hold on just a second. We updated that amendment. The amendment is 6723, and by way of explanation, we had a member who wanted to withdraw one of the amendments that they had submitted, and it was an error, so we re-amended, and now I have a new amendment without his amendment, if that makes sense. And it is now 6723.
Motion and second on the amendment. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The amendment carries with the bill. Chairman Howell, you are recognized.
Thank you. This bill provides for the naming of certain roads and bridges in honor of certain specified persons in your district. And again, it has about 53 amendments.
Hey, question called? No question. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it's just a question of process. So I'm looking at 1 and 2, and it may just be the way that they're laid out. They don't seem to be a state road. So I just want to get an understanding on, does this committee name things that aren't state roads? What's our jurisdiction? Again, it's just a question for information.
Chairman Howell, you are recognized.
I'd defer to legal for that if you want to go out of session.
Yes, we're now out of session.
Joel Hayes, Office of Legal Services. Representative McKenzie, yes, I mean, technically, all roads in the state can be considered, even though it may be designated as a county road, state does have authority, or can have authority over those roads as well. So we do name and have historically named certain county and municipal roads as well as state roads.
Yes, sir. You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just let me say for the record, I am a fan of Governor, Senator, Secretary Alexander, fellow East Tennessee and Maryville native. So just want to make sure that I understood what the process was. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Towns, you are recognized.
Chairman, thank you very much. To legal, as it relates, many times on the city council, help straighten me out if I'm out in left field, please. City council may name a road after some citizen there in their community. Will this impact that as well? A lot of times it's not a long street, but sometimes it may be a long street. So how would that work?
Representative Towns, municipalities and counties still have authority to name city and county roads. Most of these namings that are in this omnibus bill are honorary namings, and so those honorary namings do not change or redesignate addresses or anything like that on these municipal and county roads.
So, sir, if the city council and the naming apparatus decide on the same road and they had two different names, what happens?
If we're talking about an official address or an official designation of the road, then the state would have authority over that.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions for legal? Being none, we're going back into session. Question has been called. We'll be voting on House Bill 124 by Chairman Howell. Those are in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the ayes have it. Bill moves on to finance. Any other questions or comments that needs to come before this committee? Chairman Howell, you are recognized.
Yes, we do have a hearing right now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Hall. Appreciate it. Without objection, members, we are going to go out of session and hear our first report as required by statute from the Office of Accessible Transportation, and the Director, Suzanne Carlson, is here, and we're glad to see you and excited to hear about the first year of operation of the Office of Accessible Transportation. And might comment, you may refer to this too, that Tennessee was the first state in the nation to create such an office, and it came through this committee. I was proud to sponsor that bill, and I'm anxious to hear your report. So you are recognized, and you're welcome to remove your mask if you'd like, so that the people at home can see who's speaking. And if you please, just for the record, identify yourself.
Thank you. Defer to my Bureau Chief Preston Elliott if he wants to make introductory remarks.
Oh, sure. You're recognized.
Preston Elliott, Deputy Commissioner, Chief of Environment and Planning with the TDOT. And it is my honor and privilege to have both the Director of Mobility of our Multimodal Division, Suzanne Carlson, and then Emily Dukach with the Office of Accessibility and Mobility. A lot of great work has been undertaken since you passed this law last year, and it's great for us to be able to present that to you. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Glad to have you. You're recognized.
Thank you. We're here today. I'm Suzanne Carlson. I'm the Director of the Multimodal Division with the Tennessee Department of Transportation. And as noted, we're here today to talk about our first annual report and strategic plan for the mobility and accessible transportation. Pardon us while we queue up the slide here. So as noted, just about a year ago, March 2020, the Accessible Transportation and Mobility Act of 2020 was passed, which enabled TDOT to get started and set up the Office of Mobility and Accessible Transportation. We currently have one full-time employee, Emily Dukach, who's here with me, with a second person joining next week. We retain national consulting firm to complete the work that got us where we are today. You can see some of our partners on the slide here. Our key partners included experts in transportation, aging, and people with disabilities, including users of accessible transportation. And the target population that we're speaking to today is persons with disability and older adults who use these services. We did some robust engagement and planning through this process, beginning with interviews with state agencies and stakeholders, regional focus groups, transportation provider survey, public user survey, and monthly meetings of our work group, which led into a needs assessment, evaluation of existing services, and development of a mission and goals, which we will talk about here today. So we're here to present, as stated in the law, the mission scope, the 5-year strategic plan, and the first annual report. The mission that we developed together with our partners is to provide resources and expertise for expanding and improving accessible transportation and mobility across the state. Through this outreach effort, we identified 3 priority areas that really came up quite a bit, which was shrinking gaps in accessible transportation, establishing a pathway to integrated policies and collaboration, and strengthening transportation independence so that people across Tennessee can get out of their homes and have the freedom to get to their destinations. Thank you. As we drilled down into the 3 priority areas in development of the strategic plan, we identified 5 targeted goals, which are on the slide here as well. So the first is expanded access, improving access to services across communities. Service solutions, so identifying common barriers to service and developing solutions to those. Collaboration, so building collaboration and partnerships to maximize use of financial resources. Technology solutions, so creating customer-focused services where there's public information and diverse access to the information to get these services across Tennessee. And improving communication between transit providers and users of transportation services. Beginning with our needs assessment, as mentioned, we looked at the existing transportation services, and what you're seeing on the map here is the transportation providers across the state. So as you probably know, we do have public transit in all 95 counties across Tennessee, which is fantastic, and it's a great resource. Some areas, especially areas with higher population, there are more service providers. There's multiple options. And as you see on the map here in the lighter colors, there's some communities that really have one provider and fewer options for transportation as well. Again, on the needs assessment, we looked at the transportation needs and gaps. These were the themes that came forward through the outreach and engagement process that we did. And these are not presented in any priority order. This is somewhat of what we heard and what the common themes were. So personal assistance was one, people getting assistance to get to the vehicle or into the vehicle. Misperceptions. So a lot of people don't know that we do have transit in every state, in every county, or what the eligibility requirements are. So sometimes there's misperception. Independence, being able to get a trip when you need it and to multiple locations without having to go through an advanced reservation process that can be a barrier. Limited weekend and nighttime options. Limited funding, and that's really the foundation for a lot of the barriers that we see. If we had more funding in the system, we could provide more services and more accessibility. Continuing with the needs and gaps, affordable fares to the user was another barrier identified. Sidewalk improvements are needed so that people can access particularly a fixed route transit system, whether they're in a wheelchair or walking, and they've got a pathway to get there. Options for specialized services. So in this case, we have a diverse range of abilities and disabilities, and some people need specialized services, whether it's a special type of vehicle or specialized assistance to get into it. First mile, last mile, again, getting to that transit route or system, or more importantly, getting across a jurisdictional boundary where you may need to take one provider to the county line and get to another provider to get to your destination. And then lastly, volunteer transportation. So that's a popular service. It does have some eligibility limitations, some insurance and liability limitations and vehicle types, which makes it not an option for everybody. So then we started looking at the accessible transportation solutions and what we could do to overcome some of these barriers and improve service. One One that was identified at this stage in the process is creating a state clearinghouse of the funding programs, whether state or federal, increasing the connectivity at the local level, developing performance measures so we have a roadmap of where we're going, investing in transportation options so we can hire more drivers and provide more operating funds to provide service, and then also that personalized assistance that is often needed. And again, giving people the freedom and the access to those services so they can get to their destinations and get out of their homes. Continue with the transportation solutions. Also clarifying or simplifying the eligibility rules, sort of translating what the federal or state rules may be so people get access. And in some cases, informing the rulemaker that we maybe need a change, we may need a different policy to help provide that accessibility. And then lastly, implementing and expanding technology choices. And this is one that we're already at work on, developing some technology specifications for our public transit agencies that will increase their efficiency and allow them to provide more services. Last slide, wrapping up. Our next steps are going to be to continue this analysis and refine our objectives and really drill down on that 5-year plan, identifying increased capacity to do the work and building on the successful strategies that we've identified in place today, and then cultivating new opportunities to make transportation more accessible. You should have the short summary report in front of you today. There's a longer report available as well on our website. I've provided the contact information here. And with that, Emily and Preston and I would be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Director. Members, do you have any questions or comments for the Director? Let me just say how gratifying this is to see this take shape. It's not often you get to see the results of a bill that you passed. And I'm also glad to see the co-sponsor of that bill sitting over here on the right, Chairman Jernigan, and I'm glad you came in to see this presentation. And it's really encouraging to see the progress you've made. And it's also, I think, important to note that this office was created with at no cost to the Tennessee taxpayer. These were federal funds, and we made it happen thanks to this committee. And appreciate you being here today. Representative Towns.
Mr. Chairman, likewise, I did throw that comment. I do have a question for you as it relates to a person that needs the services and they have to go to a doctor's appointment that day and to the grocery store and perhaps maybe to get a little medicine. So would they be able to do that seamlessly?
That is a challenge. Emily may be able to speak to this further, but you typically need an advance reservation. And so you need to schedule a time and a destination, and then the vehicle may need to wait for you. So by the time you're done with that doctor's appointment, you may not be able to retain that vehicle to get you to the next 2 stops that you need to make in your day.
But what we're saying, though, it is possible for it to happen. It just has to be scheduled.
Can I speak to that? Hit the on-off.
Emily Dukach. I am the Mobility and Accessible Transportation Supervisor at TDOT. We heard a lot about that in our focus groups and in our surveys that we did. We saw a lot of participation. We had about 230 focus group participants and almost 900 survey responses. And one of the issues that we identified in those responses is that people find it difficult to schedule a trip that meets all of their needs at one time. So depending on where you're at, it may be possible to go to multiple destinations with one provider, and then someone in another area may have to make multiple reservations. So if they need to go to 3 stops, they might need to make 3 trip reservations, which can be really difficult.
However, they do have the ability to do it because those are just the typical necessities that we have. You know, grocery store, doctor's appointment, and, you know, sometimes to the pharmacy or something of that nature, you know.
Yes, in every county, we have providers who are able to make medical trips and pharmacy trips, run errands. There aren't restrictions on trip purposes when you're taking a public transit provider.
Okay, but this is not for an emergency at all?
No.
Good, okay, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you so much. This is a very good report, and thank you for the work you're doing. And just very gratifying again. Thank you so much.
We appreciate your sponsorship and support for the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we're going to go back into session so that we can adjourn. But that, oh, Chairman Whitson, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Howell. And I just want to say, before we adjourn, I just want to tell you how much we appreciate your leadership and on this committee. It's been a real pleasure serving with you, sir. Oh, and ever since I've been up here, you've been a mentor and a friend and a trusted advisor. And it's just a pleasure to be on your committee.
Well, thank you, Chairman Whitson, and it's great to have a subcommittee chairman who can kill bills so easily and make people like it. It's a real talent. I'm sorry. Oh. Representative Weaver.
It's always a pleasure to work on a committee with all you distinguished gentlemen and work on roads, trains, planes, and automobiles. But I further would like to also say I really like your radio voice, Chairman.
Oh.
And also, I'm going to make sure you have the last word.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. I appreciate this entire committee, each one of you. It's a pleasure to work with you. And we have diverse views, and you always add something to the conversation. And I learn something every time we have an interesting bill and the questions arise. I learn something about every time we have a committee meeting, and it's been a pleasure working with each and every one of you. So this completes our calendar. We're done for the year. So without objection, this committee is closed, subject to the call of the chair.